What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Derek and Cody, with you as always. And guys, we're going ahead and doing Cody's mock draft 2.0. But before we get into that, we want to make sure that remind you that this episode is presented by PrizePicks. Make sure to go to prizepicks.com or use the app today and use code BTJ for a $100 deposit match when you sign up. But guys, let's hop right into it. Cody's mock draft 2.0. We're 2 weeks into free agency at this point. We kind of have a little bit more understanding of what's going on here with the Colts and a few more other guys going off the board. Cody, I'm excited to hear what you got for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, and I'll preface it by saying this. Number one, less than 30 days till the draft, so hallelujah for that.
Yes, sir.
Number two, Derek has no clue who I'm going to take here. I gave him three choices. I said, I'm going to give you three options for positions of need, right? And so if you've been following this channel, you know what those three positions are: wide receiver, edge, or corner. Derek, what did you say? I'll let you say so people don't think
was thinking it was edge. I was thinking it was edge.
You're thinking edge. You're thinking it was edge. All right. Well, Derek, surprisingly, even though I debated it, edge is not my first position that I have the Indianapolis Colts taking. As much as I wanted to, and I had the whole argument in my mind if I did take a guy like Jared Verse or, Dallas Turner or whoever, but again, Dallas Turner wasn't available, but you know what I mean? One of those edge guys, I was like, with how strong the Colts allegedly were pushing for Danielle Hunter, that makes me think they're not satisfied with defensive end, so maybe they go that round one. Still could happen. But for this scenario, Derek, I have the Indianapolis Colts going to their secondary. So still a defensive position.
Okay.
And I have them taking cornerback out of Alabama, Terrion Arnold with the
Wow.
I mean, Derek, 5'11", 189, RAS score of a 9.43. I know, Derek, a lot of people have Quinion Mitchell, right here for the Indianapolis Colts, but I think for me, when I look at it, Terrion Arnold, although he's not quite as athletically gifted as a Quinion Mitchell, I mean, Derek, this guy, he's number one, played in the SEC, so he has played at a high level against high-level competition. Number two, this guy is extremely smart on top of being ultra-athletic as well. And, I mean, Derek, this is the type of guy that's exactly the mold that Chris Ballard's looking for. I mean, around 6 foot, 190. I mean, he's a guy that has just insane short area quickness, Derek. His change of direction is absolutely elite, and he's just so explosive. And that word in particular, Derek, is why I think Indianapolis makes this move, because they were talking about explosion, right? And Terrion Arnold certainly has that, in his game. And I think he's just going to continue to get better, Derek, with time and experience. And then the Indianapolis Colts truly have their number one lockdown corner to pair alongside Juju Brents for the foreseeable future. And I just think overall, although it was tempting to take another position because this corner class is extremely deep, I think Terrion Arnold, the fact that he was sitting there, it was hard to pass up. And I'm sure, I know in the next kind of series of mock drafts, Derek, we'll probably have a trade down scenario there. But for this one, Terrion Arnold was the best player on my board at that time. I think he just feels an immediate need, immediate upgrade on the outside for the Indianapolis Colts. Talk to me about Terrion Arnold and what you think he could provide to this Colts secondary.
Yeah, Terrion Arnold, that's fantastic. If Terrion Arnold were to fall to 15 somehow, some way, that would be a great option. I think the majority of people have concluded that Terrion Arnold is the best cornerback in this entire draft class as of this moment. There's some fluidity there, but Terrion Arnold, by no in-depth purposes, is a top 3 easy, and he's probably not even number 3. So Terrion Arnold really lives up to a lot of that, very locked down, like you said, good RAS score. And if the Colts feel like they can run it back with their young guys, but that does not mean they're not willing to go and get the guy over there that alongside Juju Brents and Terrion Arnold and Juju Brents both pick it up together. That's locked down on both sides of the field. And Chris Ballard loves the sound of that. I would love the sound of that. So, hey, I would not be opposed to Terrion Arnold being there and taking him at corner at 15, man. I like that pick.
And I think it's very plausible, Derek, because number one, we know how many quarterbacks are. Like, it would be 4 guys that would go before this. So that definitely helps you out. Obviously, there's a lot of wide receivers as well. So, Derek, I really do think this is a really likely scenario that Terrion Arnold is sitting there at pick 15 for Indianapolis. And Derek, I mean, this guy, he's only 21 years old. He's extremely young. He's an extremely young corner. And you saw over the course of the season with Alabama in 2023, he just got better and better. So, I mean, Derek, he's twitchy, he's explosive, he's big, he's athletic. I mean, this is the perfect prototypical guy for Chris Ballard. And not to mention, this guy is super, super smart player as well, Terrion Arnold. Just his on-the-field IQ is just next level. So, definitely love that. And I think he's just going to continue to get better with time. It's one of those guys you're like, he's just going to get better as he plays and gets more acclimated, to the NFL level. So definitely love that. Colts get their guy. And Derek, I think the argument that could be made as well is, do the Indianapolis Colts hold off a year on getting, a pass rusher, say you pick 15 or whatever, because they think, all right, you know what? Like, we want to see what Charlie Partridge can do kind of with some of the guys in the building. And if it's still not where we want it to be, then we will make a concerted effort next year. Look, I'm not saying I agree with it, but I could see a scenario where the Colts talk themselves into that and they say, hey, we're going to improve the secondary. We're going to add more competition in there. And then we're going to see, what happens with the pass rush as well, and with defense as a whole. So definitely love that one. Now, Derek, I'm going to move to pick number 2 here for the Colts, round number 2 for the Indianapolis Colts. And I have them going to the offensive side of the ball. I have them taking wide receiver out of South Carolina, Xavier Legette. I mean, Derek, this guy, 9.89 RAS score, 6'1", 221. He's got insane radius to catch the football. I mean, his frame is just unreal. And he's just a guy that I think he has a nice combination of size and athleticism. And that just screams Chris Ballard. That screams the Indianapolis Colts. That screams Shane Steichen. And I think you could just be amazed at what Shane Steichen could truly do with a player like Xavier Legette here in round number 2. Now, what are your thoughts, Derek, on Xavier Legette, a very explosive wide receiver who's got some size to him as well? Talk to me about him and what he would provide for the Colts and your thoughts on this pick.
I love the pick. I mean, Xavier Legette in the second round, we know that from the span of 15 to about where the Colts are going to go next in the second round, there's going to be a lot of wide receivers that are going to be taken off the board. And if you're able to get Xavier Legette in the second round at that spot, that is phenomenal. I know everyone keeps looking at it. It's another big body wide receiver. Yes, but he is much more athletic than just a big guy. He's 6'1". He's not quite as tall as Michael Pittman or an Alec Pierce, but he's still got a radius that a lot of people deal with. 220, that dude's a tank. He's not going to get pushed around, and he's a guy that 100% can move corners on the edge. If he's a guy that's willing to do a lot of run blocking, that's 100% what the Indianapolis Colts are looking for in a wide receiver. And like you said, with a 9.8, that's more athletic than Alec Pierce. That's more athletic than Josh Downs. That's a lot more athletic than Michael Pittman. That is the most athletic dude that would be on the Indianapolis Colts at wide receiver. He would be the most athletic. So it's another one of those things. He is a guy that will 100% go in and will get the job done. He will make things happen for you. He's the perfect combination of size, strength, speed, agility, catch radius, everything you could want. He is a great opportunity there. I really like that pick there, Cody.
And Derek, one thing in particular that's put it over the edge for me, one of the biggest knocks on the Colts wide receivers, I'm sure you've guessed it, you know this by now, we've heard it 1,000 times, separation, right? Separation has been a big issue for the Colts and kind of one of their biggest deters, and Xavier Legette is absolutely elite in terms of getting separation down the field. I mentioned just the explosiveness. I mean, Derek, he has so much potential to even be better in that game just because of his elite speed, because of his ability, to get separation from these different guys, and just, after the catch ability as well for a guy like Xavier Legette, I think is just absolutely phenomenal. And so I think it'd be a great compliment to, you have, to steal the old comparison from last year, you have a couple power forwards right in that wide receiver room with Pittman and Pierce. You have your slot guy, more of your point guard with Josh Downs. You just need that elite separator. And I think Xavier Legette is that guy that can absolutely be that elite separator for you and can really kind of complete your wide receiver core, Derek. I really do believe that Xavier Legette, his abilities and what he can do down the field, I mean, you have a little bit of everything, don't you? You have the Michael Pittman, who's consistent, Josh Downs, who can play the slot, Alec Pierce, who on any given play can run the ball down the field and has that vertical threat. And you have Xavier Legette, who is the master, if you will, of, separation and yards after the catch. And so you kind of have all these different wide receivers that can do all these different types of things for you. And I think that perfectly balances your wide receiver core the way that you want it, Derek. So absolutely love this pick. And that's why I love this wide receiver group, is because I know Brian Thomas is a name that a lot of people want at 15. But Derek, you can get a guy like Xavier Legette here in round 2. That's how deep this class is. And you could probably still get another guy on day number 3 if you really wanted to, right? So absolutely love this. Now, Derek, I'm going to kind of surprise some people here. Maybe it's not that much of a surprise to you, but in round number 3, I'm having the Indianapolis Colts go back to their secondary and taking a safety, Cole Bishop out of Utah. Derek, 9.87 RAS score again. He's 6'2", 206. I mean, he is just absolutely a guy that can do everything for you. He's got the athleticism. He's got the size. We already know, Derek, the question marks at safety. I think even if you do sign a veteran safety and or bring back Julian Blackmon, I mean, let's be honest, that veteran safety, it's Quandre Diggs, Justin Simmons, somebody else, they're not going to be your long-term guy. So you need a solution at free safety, and I think Cole Bishop can do that because he's got the athleticism, like I mentioned. He won't have to start right away, but he can contribute to your safety room, and you can feel a lot better about the depth going into the season if you get a guy like him. And I don't really know how he was sitting here because he's one of the best safeties in this class, but you know what? He was sitting here, so I said, absolutely, we're going to address that free safety position. We are going to address probably the weakest position right now on the roster. So I had Cole Bishop here out of Utah. And obviously, you bring back Blackmon, you got the Utah connection there. So what are your thoughts here on Cole Bishop?
Yeah, a lot of people are high on Cole Bishop. And if you were able to get him in the 3rd round, that would be a phenomenal grab for them. Again, the Colts safety room is just so young at this point. What would hurt to try to bring one more guy in, right? That could go out there and try to get the job done. No one's really secured the safety room down. So there's always room to try and bring in some more competition there. And I would certainly not mind that sort of situation happening if you were to go and get another safety in the 3rd round.
One more thing about him is he can actually play a little bit of slot corner for you, Derek. He can play in the slot a little bit, which I think is interesting. He did a little bit at his time in Utah. And obviously, we kind of have that question mark a little bit, don't we, right? If Kenny Moore goes down, who's your slot guy? We don't really have an answer right now. And so I think having a guy like Bishop who can play it in a pinch if you need him to, I think makes that even more valuable. The fact that he's position flexible, he's athletic, and he has a chance here to really contribute to this roster from day one. So absolutely would love to get another safety in here, Cole Bishop.
As we said, guys, today's episode is sponsored by Prize Picks. Now, what is Prize Picks? Prize Picks is the largest daily fantasy sports platform in North America. Instead of battling against thousands of other players across platforms, you're basically picking 2 to 6 player stat projections, and you're choosing more or less on those stat projections to be able to watch those winnings roll in. It's very easy. Do you guys want to play along at some of Prize Picks' favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and UFC fighter Sugar Sean O'Malley? Well, if you guys sign up today, you can find the community plays under the promos tab of the app to view the entries of some of the biggest names on the platform and be a part of that as well. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 just like that with NBA, NHL, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app. Like a lot of other things, guys, they also offer injury insurance. So your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So if someone exits the game in the first half and does not return in the second, that player projection won't count against you and the rest of your entry stays live. So it's great bounce back for that one. What I love about the app as well, guys, is it's not just sports like NBA, NHL, football, and tennis, and baseball, and all these other things, but there's also a lot of others that go into it as well. If you like to place entries on video game situations like Call of Duty, CS2, Apex, if that's something that appeals to you, there's a wide variety of sports and video games and everything else that you can place entries on. And I love how expansive it is. Even just looking at the NBA, there's entries you can make with turnovers, with points. You can do combo deals, dunks, field goals attempted, all of these different things. So there's just so many different ways to make money off of these entries. Be sure to download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, download the app today and use code BTJ for a first deposit match up to $100. Again, it's sponsored by Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy.
Let's move on to round number 4 here for the Indianapolis Colts. Derek, I know that we said this was not necessarily a need, but this guy was sitting here, and I was like, I have to take him because he's kind of the type of tight end you're looking for. Ja'Tavion Sanders out of Texas, 6'3", 245. Not quite as athletic as these other guys, but he's still got an 8.4 RAS score. I mean, Derek, this guy is essentially, a wide receiver playing tight end. I mean, he's got the size, a little bit bigger for a wide receiver, but, a little bit smaller for a tight end. He's kind of one of those tweener type of guys. But Derek, I mean, I think he would just add so much to your tight end room, just adding another body in there. You don't really have an answer, just continuing to throw darts at the dartboard here. And a guy that just absolutely can, do some things down the field that maybe some of your other tight ends can't do currently. Mm-hmm. And so I definitely think he's a guy that has some really good release off the line, and he can do some different things to really help your tight end room and just continue again to add to Anthony Richardson, continue to add weapons to him, and get him another guy that can, make some plays down the field. So what are your thoughts on Ja'Tavion Sanders here?
Hey, another weapon to try to bring something in for Anthony Richardson. I won't mind it. If I were Chris Ballard, I would have tried to address tight end earlier in the draft, but there's really not a whole lot more you can look at it when it comes to that. So, hey, if they think it's another good weapon for Anthony Richardson to compete with that young tight end room, I'm all for it.
Awesome. All right, and then in round number 5, I have the Indianapolis Colts going back to corner, just adding another guy here, Elijah Jones out of Boston College. Again, Derek, the prototypical size for Chris Ballard, 6'1", 185 here, so tad lighter, but still pretty good size for a corner, just continuing to add competition in there. This guy's got the athleticism, Derek. He has a 9.55 RAS score. So, I mean, it's just another guy in here that you just throw in there. You let him compete with, say, Terrion. I don't think he would compete with Terrion Arnold, but you let him compete with maybe a guy like Jalen Jones or Dallas Flowers for, kind of that third outside corner position, kind of some of those reserve guys. And Derek, it's a position that I could honestly add 1 or 2 guys in the draft every single year. And especially with how deep this corner room is, or with how deep this corner class is, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. When I had Alex from Hail Mary Sports on, I asked him the question, with the corner room, I said, could you see a scenario, man, where the Colts double dip here? Because he is raving on how especially deep this corner room is. Derek, he made a statement. He said, this is the best corner class I've ever seen in terms of just the overall class. And so I think just adding another guy here, we already know Chris Ballard has had some success finding corners a little bit later in the draft. Heck, he did it last year with Jalen Jones. So I think for this scenario, I have the Colts just adding another guy, pair the athleticism. It just makes a lot of sense here for the Colts. Just continue to add. And Derek, I think now you can say, okay, you feel a lot better at corner now that you've gotten 2 guys that are going to come in and compete for playing time. And so I love this pick. Just another guy here. What are your thoughts here on adding just another corner here for the Colts here in round number 5?
And add more depth, man. I tell you what, I do appreciate even trying to get one in the draft, but if you're gonna double dip anywhere, I would just literally suggest doing it anywhere else because there's a lot of other situations that I could see where Indy should try to double dip in other key positions. So that's the only thing I would think of if they were gonna double dip, do it in another position besides corner.
Hey, I'm just continue to add competition. You preach it, just continue to add it, and may the best players be out there, man. That's kind of where I sit at corner right now. Okay, so I'm going to move on to round number 6 here. I have the Indianapolis Colts actually selecting a linebacker here, Derek. A little bit of an older prospect, but Edufuanu Olufuashu. Sorry, I completely butchered that. But, I mean, Derek, this guy's got the athleticism, a little bit older, like I mentioned. He played 6 years in college at Washington, 6 foot, 236. But Derek, I mean, he was such a efficient guy and productive guy in college. I mean, he was a tackling machine. And again, with the loss of a guy like Shaq Leonard, I just think adding some more depth at linebacker wouldn't be bad. Just adding more of another specimen, another guy that could just go in there and compete, with guys like Segun Alubi and whoever else, you want to throw in there to that competition. And I think, yeah, if you have a situation, Derek, where, Zaire Franklin or EJ Speed or somebody like that gets banged up and has to miss a game or two, really, who do you have in there? And so I just want to continue to add to that. The Colts have done a great job at adding linebackers and finding guys here in, day number 3. And so I say, hey, why not? They've had a great track record overall, and being able to do that, give Cato June another linebacker that has athletic traits and just let him go to work. So I'm good with that overall. What are your thoughts here on the Colts adding an athletic linebacker here?
Hey, I mean, at the end of the day, I'm all for adding some athletic linebackers at the end of drafts. We've seen the Colts do it quite frequently, and it's worked out in their favor a lot. So if Ballard sees a good one, I'll take it.
Awesome. And then my final pick here, talking about double dipping, I have the Colts going back to wide receiver here. I have them taking Aeneas Smith out of Texas A&M. Derek, he's a little bit of a different type of body type from Xavier Legette. He's 5'9", 190, so a little bit smaller wide receiver for you. But Derek, he's a guy that don't let his size fool you, because he is a willing and ready and able blocker. Like, he is a guy that will not be afraid to take on a block and do some things. And, I just wanted to kind of, think about the wide receivers and just continue to add different body types in this wide receiver core. And we know how much Reggie Wayne and just these wide receivers, how important it is for them to be willing and able to run block. And so for that reason, I have him here. And he was the guy that was productive last year at A&M, had nearly 800 yards receiving. So I have Aeneas Smith here to kind of round it out for the draft. What are your thoughts on just adding another wide receiver to this group?
Can never have too many weapons, man. Can never have too many weapons.
Awesome. Well, cool. Well, that'll do it for my draft, Derek. Again, I'll just share my draft with you really fast. So pick 15, Terrion Arnold out of Alabama. Xavier Legette, the wide receiver out of South Carolina, at pick 46. Round 3, pick 82, I have Cole Bishop, the safety out of Utah. Pick 117, I have the Indianapolis Colts going to tight end, taking Jatavian Sanders. Pick 151, I have the Indianapolis Colts going back to corner, taking Boston College corner Elijah Jones. Pick 191, I have the Colts going linebacker, and taking Edufon Oluwafashanu out of Washington. And then pick number 234 in the 7th round, the final pick, I have the Indianapolis Colts going back to wide receiver and taking Aeneas Smith out of Texas A&M. So, Derek, what are your thoughts overall, man, on my second attempt here at a mock draft? Again, no trade downs here. We have strictly the picks the Colts have currently. What are your thoughts on that?
I really liked it, man, especially the front 3 that you had. Really enjoyed those ones and what Indianapolis could potentially do with those. So really happy with your mock draft, and I think it has a lot of layers to it.
It does. It does. And I was looking at certain positions like, hey, this isn't necessarily a need, but you can always use some depth there. Some of these positions, I was like, just throw another guy in the competition and just let it play out the way it'll play out. So, yeah, man, I'm really intrigued to see how it goes. And I'm really intrigued to hear your mock draft coming up here right after we record this one. So I'm really looking forward to that. And also for our mock draft 3.0, where we throw in the trade down scenario. So really looking forward to that. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts on my mock draft 2.0. Really curious to hear that. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.